Hey guys, welcome back. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. Welcome to another weekly used gun review. Remember, in these videos, I take about 8 used firearms that have come into the store over the past week, giving you guys about a 3 to 4 minute review of each one to give you guys an idea of some different stuff that is out there on the market. Remember, the point of this video is not to sell you anything. This is just for information and educational purposes only, to keep in accordance with YouTube's policies. Anyway, guys, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into it now. Okay, remember the format of this video is we start off with most common and move through least common as the video progresses. So starting off with number 1 is a Springfield XDS, and this one has 5 magazines in a soft case as it was part of the Gear Up package, which I'll talk about in a second. So this pistol came out in 2014, which was actually about the time that we opened our store, and I remember this was a very hot item the first year that we opened up. We had trouble getting them, of course, because we were a new business. But people would call left and right looking for these things. Really popular handguns. Of course, there's other things out that have smaller packages, higher capacity. So these have kind of fallen off in popularity. Other things that are in its class, like the Shield, like the first gen Smith & Wesson Shield, still continue to be popular. Not too many people looking for these anymore, but they were popular in about 2014, 2015. They came out with these in 9, 40, and 45. Now the interesting thing is between the 9, the 40, and the 45, the frame size on all three was the same, which to my knowledge was the first time they were ever successfully able to put a 45 and a 9mm within the exact same package in a concealed carry firearm. There may have been others, but I think this was the first big commercially successful one that did it. Now they offered a 3.5 and a 4-inch barrel variation. They first came out in all black, but they would have a bitone, the FDE frames, different things like that. And Faith, with the XD line, you had a grip safety here and a trigger safety here. Really nice package. Came with high-vis fiber optic sights, and brand new to the market. These were about $450 to $500. Now, pricing on these under normal scenarios have dropped off used to about the $300 price point, which for the money, this is a really good handgun. In fact, this is what my dad EDCs this model. So 9mm 3.5-inch barrel. Super nice, reliable handguns. Now, as many of you might remember, in 2016, after President Trump was elected, the demand for firearms really fell off, and a lot of companies, Springfield was the biggest one, started offering rebates and different promotions to incentivize people to get out and buy their products. One of the things they offered was the Gear Up promotion, which is like where they would send you 5 or 6 additional magazines and a nice range bag like this. So when we see these come in used, we do typically find them with tons of magazines, as people obviously took advantage of that promotion. It was like $180 worth of mag. So it was a really cool promotion that they put out there. Right now, the pricing on these things, like everything else, has gone up a little bit. You might find these with the 5 magazines in about the $350 to $400 range used, but still for the money. And even if you kind of wait for things to settle down a little bit, really good product. Now they would come with the Mod 2 XDS a couple years ago, which in my opinion, at least in my store, really flopped. They were bigger, bulkier, and heavier than this. So I carried a few of them when they first hit the market, but nobody seemed to want them. When these first hit the market, I mean, I was selling these as quickly as I could get them in. People love these things, and for good reason. Good balance, good weight, and good feel. It's a really nice handgun. I do get a lot of XDSs. A ton of them are out there on the market, so they come in used pretty periodically. You guys have seen a few of them on the videos, but anyway, there's an XDS. All right, up next is a pistol I'm sure you guys have seen a time or two before. This is the Sig Sauer Mosquito. Now this pistol would come out onto the market in 1985 and was really meant to be an ancillary training implement to go alongside the Sig P226. So if you have the 226, you could get something like this, use it for training, translate all your acquired habits and skills over to your full-size platform. Should work well for you as a training implement, or good for use with the first-time buyer or anything like that. First-time shooter, that is. This one here is in the bitone, as mentioned, 22 long rifle. Now, the pricing on these was typically around the $299 mark, brand new. They would come with 1 magazine. I had seen some packages where they came with 2 mags. Mags typically held 10 rounds. Now in about 2013, these would be discontinued, and by about 2014, 2015, they would be completely removed from the market. There have been things that have come out since, like the Firefly by GSG, which is exactly pretty much this pistol. So Sig would drop the line, and then the rights would have, or GSG would implement it or bring it back to the market. And when GSG would bring it back as a Firefly, they were known to be way more reliable. One of the biggest problems they had selling these is unless you had premium, high velocity, good quality ammunition like CCI Mini Mag or something like that, These were not known to be very reliable and would jam frequently. Other things on the market like the Walther P22 or the SR22 from Ruger were known to be much better training implements, way better at handling things like Winchester White Box or any type of bulk target 22 ammunition, which these would just not work well with. Now on the used market, these would typically be about $150. Even after being discontinued, not too many people were really interested in them. Now, you know, the market on these things have gone up about 50 to 100 bucks, which is to be expected with everything else that's going on in the market right now with used and new firearms. But the controls on this are exactly functional the same way as they are in the standard Model 226. An interesting firearm. I would really hesitate to call this a collectible, but definitely something from the past. If you are interested in this sort of platform, I would definitely recommend looking at the GSG Firefly as opposed to the Mosquito, unless you just really like the Sig branding and maybe you're a Sig collector and you're more concerned with just having one in the collection. But interesting little firearm, not one that I've ever really recommended to people, again, unless it's just going to be another one in the pile of your 22 collection. But still interesting to get these things in. You price them right, they do move. So there is a Sig Sauer Mosquito 22 LR. Okay, up next is a product from Smith & Wesson that would come out in 2009. This is the Smith & Wesson MP 1522. It's out of here. Okay, as mentioned, this did hit the market in 2009 and is still being manufactured today. Its claim to fame is it's a really good training implement for a full-size AR-15, whether it's 5.56, 300 blackout. A lot of the other AR platform 22s that had existed on the market during around that this came out were things like the 715T from Mossberg, things that sort of mimicked and looked like an AR-15 but did not really function like an AR-15. Now the cool thing about this is all the controls, everything, the magazine release, the fire selector, even the charging handle, the sights, everything is exactly to scale on your full-size rifle. So short of getting something like a bolt replacement kit like the CMMG conversion kit, this is a good standalone platform that really has the exact form, weight, or not weight, but feel of the traditional rifle. Now the one difference, of course, as I just touched on, was the weight. This is built on a polymer upper and lower. Of course, the handguard, everything's polymer. So really you just have the barrel and your internal components that are metal. So it does weigh quite a bit less than an AR-15. So that's going to be the one difference. But other than that, all of your training will translate directly over. Also, for people who are looking to get into shooting for the first time, this is a really fun way to do it. Typically, you know, you get something like a Marlin Model 60 or a Ruger 1022. This is a way to get out with a 22 rifle, which has the same ergonomics and feel as an AR-15. Running courses and stages with are a little bit more fun, quick detach, you know, 25 round magazines, which are not that expensive. These are about typically $25. Really cool platform to get into. So a lot of people have really picked up on these things. Now, normally brand new, you're at about $450, which is super cheap for what you're getting. Used, I mean, we've run these things out of here used for like $299, you know, in good condition like this. Now, again, I keep reiterating prices are up about $50 to $100 on this sort of thing. So new, you might find these for about $500 to $600. Right now, used, you might find them for $400 to $500, just the way the market is at the current moment. But again, as a training implement or just something to take out and plink tin cans with, that's just fun, different, again, from the traditional wooden stock, straight stock rifle. These are super cool, and they are reliable. They eat anything from higher quality, high velocity to just your standard bolt quantity, white box on the shelf type stuff. So cool, worth taking a look at. I know I've had a few of these on the channel before, but these have always been one of my favorites. I've had one myself for a few years as well, so really good rifles. Okay, up next I have an actual AR-15, and this one is from Anderson Manufacturing. Now, Anderson has been around for about 30 years, and one of their big draws into the market is cheap and inexpensive receivers or lower receivers you can build into a completed rifle. You could get an Anderson lower for about $40 to $50, and keep in mind this is even prior to Palmetto coming out onto the market, and now they've sort of dominated the inexpensive receiver lineup. I even bought a Palmetto receiver on sale once for like $30 shipped. Okay, Anderson was always the name in that lower inexpensive echelon of the AR-15 building sort of platform and company, and that's really where its name sparks from. Now, they do make completed rifles like this called the AM-15 at very much an entry-level price. Typically, I think MSRP on them is $600, but you could find them, especially over the past few years, for about $499 to maybe $550 brand new. Used on the market, you should have found them anywhere from $350 to $450. So for a completed optics ready or sight ready AR-15 N556, you really were not going to get much cheaper than that. Now, of course, again, I'm going to reiterate the pricing on these things is higher. You're looking used right now $600 to $700 for something like this because it is an AR-15, but hang on to the market for a few years and you should be able to find these inexpensive again. Now, inexpensive does not necessarily mean cheap or unfunctional. People who have had Andersons or built their rifles out of Anderson components have always reported to me that they've had no issues, always ran well. It's just a very basic and watered down platform ready for upgrades, similar to like a Ruger AR-556 or a Smith & Wesson MP 15. So in that price point, really good entry level. Now you do get some other features like the M203 grenade launcher cutout. Like I said, optics ready, interesting machine work on the bolt carrier group, CAR-15 handguards that are heat shielded, smaller profile though, A2 pistol grip and M4 6-position collapsible stock. So very basic package, ready for you to bolt on any type of mag pull furniture. Lights, lasers, illuminated optics, and like that. It actually looks like it's got like a nickel boron coated trigger group in here. I don't know if that was an upgrade or something that the previous owner put in there. A2 birdcage flash hider. So very, very simple as an entry level price point. Always good, even if you're on a budget or getting into an AR-15 for the very first time. You might not know if you like the platform or not, kind of to get your feet wet on the whole concept of this platform and design. Also, going through and modifying it yourself is a good introduction to getting into building one completely from the ground up. So really cool products. Anderson AM-15, this stuff really doesn't sit around too long. Okay, up next is a pretty common one. I'm sure you guys have seen at gun shows and gun stores. This is a P-Series Ruger. More specifically, this is a P95. So the P-Series would launch in 1985 and would be discontinued in 2013. Now, what makes this, the P95, different from things like the P89 is the earlier versions of the P-Series had an investment cast frame. On the P95, this is when the model would move into a polymer frame and really be an introductory on from Ruger into the polymer line sort of handguns, which were becoming popular around the 90s. So this would be the first one to do it. 1996 is when this released and hit the market. Now, the P-Series Rugers were most popular in the 90s. This is where most people were buying them, had them, collected them. Even though that they were available through the 2000s, when you look at these, you definitely think 90s. Came with 2 magazines on a hard case, double single action with a decocker safety. Magazines were double stack, and they would hold, there's no marker on here, but I believe it was 14 or 15 rounds of 9mm. The other thing about the P95 is it was a shorter barrel configuration variation, of the P89 series. Again, so making it lighter, smaller, more compact, which again is where handgun design and implementation was really headed through the 90s into the 2000s. So a really interesting pivotal time in Ruger handgun production. Now, when this would be discontinued, what really was the linchpin on these was the SR series that would come out from Ruger, which were actually subsequently replaced by the American series a couple years ago. I actually really like the SR series more than the American, and I like those more than these. These are very bulky, heavy, clunky. They do feel like tanks, especially things like the P89 with the investment cast or the aluminum alloy frame. Definitely very bulky and heavy feeling. Now, price point on these is not very high. You should be able to pick one of these up used for about the $300 to $350 mark now. A little while ago, you might be able to find these for $250 to $300. So for that price point, as a good backup, a truck gun, a nightstand firearm, really, really nice product for the money. Again, having that control in the double single action hammer-fired pistol with a company like Ruger backing up the name, they were always known to be functional, reliable, accurate. They were just really the only negatives about these were sort of the heft, the weight, and the size, but they were always functional regardless of that. So I have had several of these come in. People have traded them over the years to upgrade to other things that are a little bit more modern, a little bit lightweight. But it's typical to find a ton of these things on the market, again, at a very affordable price point. So if you are on a budget, definitely worth taking a look at a P-Series Ruger 9mm. Anyway, P-Series Ruger pistol, really cool to get one in. All right, up next is one that does not typically get a whole lot of press. This is a Rock River Arms AR-15 rifle from Rock River in Illinois. So Rock River has been established since about 1996, 1997. Now, they first got their start making 1911 handguns because of Mark Larson, who's one of the co-founders of the business. Did have a history of working with Les Baer on the custom 1911 manufacturing. After that, worked with Eagle Arms, and prior to that, worked with Springfield, also in Illinois. So quite extensive history in working in arms manufacturing, specifically with 1911s and AR-15s. Now, in the late 90s, they would transition into manufacturing AR-15s, which is where they got a lot of their fame from. Now, in 2005-ish, Rock River Arms was awarded a contract with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, for, I don't know exactly how many units, but it was a contract that they awarded, and that basically put them on the map for AR-15 manufacture and design. Now, of course, they would still be getting their start in the assault weapons ban era, and at that time there were really not a whole lot of people manufacturing AR-15s, and even still since, you know, their inception, and they've been around for over 20 years manufacturing AR-15s. You know, a lot of people who are gun people obviously have heard of Rock River Arms, but a lot of first-time buyers, people who are new to the market, never really consider Rock River AR-15s as a viable option. Now, again, having a military contract and in about the price point of about $700 to $800 under normal circumstances, this puts this in the realm of competition with things like the Ruger AR-556 or the Springfield Saint. And of those, this is one that's actually had a governmental military, if you will, type of contract. One of their other popular things, they make left-handed AR-15s. The manufacturing, the setup on this, the machining is actually sort of breaks the traditional lines of an AR-15, definitely has their unique spin on it. So just a little bit of a functional, not really functional, I'm sorry, a stylistic difference in design, similar to like what Ruger did with the AR-556. This one also comes equipped with a sight mark. This is their old entry-level sight with a multiple reticle selection, and I believe the brightness settings, it's got 4 brightness settings with a night vision thing. Now, that is not for necessarily admitting a night vision type of display, but if you're using a night vision goggles or something like that, it emits a very low frequency beam that can be picked up and not blind you out, so you can still use that with night vision goggles or anything like that. Kind of going off on a segue. Sightmark products I've actually always really liked. Kind of like what Vortex used to be 10 years ago, really starting a name for themselves. Cellmark Corporation is the actual company, the holding company, but the Sightmark products are actually for the money. They do carry a lifetime warranty. They have like the A-Spec, the R-Spec, the M-Spec, ranging from about $100 to $200 brand new. Should be able to, you know, knock off 50 bucks on each one for one use. So good quality. I call them like range optics, unless you're going for the M-Spec, which is really a more durable housing. You can use that for longer, like hiking excursions or hunting trips or things like that, but otherwise they're just good range optics. Getting back to the rifle, M-Lock quad rail with a 1913 section on the top. It is optics ready. Again, 6-position adjustable stock, A2 pistol grip, A2 flash hider. So very basic rifle, but still really nice quality, really good, you know, acclaim. Now, not to get too political, Rock River was one of the companies held up in that Illinois, the carve-out issue that happened about 2 or 3 years ago. I actually did a video on that several years ago. You can go back in my library and take a look at it, sort of the sellout issue that was going on there. But other than that, the company it's been around for a long time and puts out really good products. So if you are looking to get into an entry-level LAR-15, is a really good point. Used, you should have been around 5.6 on these. Right now 6, 7, 8 is about where you're finding them used. So again, even being sub $1,000, nothing wrong with a Rock River LAR-15. So there you go. Okay, up next I have a Ruger Mini 14 Ranch rifle. Now, these would come out from Ruger in 1973 as a scaled down and investment cast version of the popular at the time M14 rifle, which came about in the 1960s from Springfield. Now, these were fed from a detachable box magazine. This is a 30 round, but typically these would come with a 20 rounder. You could get them also in 10 and 5 rounds. And this is topped with a Burris, just a standard Burris scope. Now, making it the Ranch rifle, the main difference was a change of the rear sight to a sort of an aperture peep, and then implementation of grooves that you can mount to scopes. So if you see a scope mounted to it, you know it's typically a Ranch rifle configuration. Now, these would be chambered in 5.56. Earlier ones would be stamped 223. Now, these are, of course, still manufactured today. And the earlier ones, let's say going back maybe 5 years or sooner, you're going to find this rubberized butt plate on the stock. That's how you know you're looking at a pretty recent manufactured version. The earlier ones would have the metal, sort of the crescent or semi-crescented metal butt plate. And I've had a couple of these on this channel here before, so you guys could go back and reference those. Now, This had, of course, a rotating locking bolt. Very similar, again, to the M1 Garand or the M14, and they were popular or meant to be popular with military and law enforcement use. Now, they really never saw a huge amount of military service around the world. I think some small countries adopted these, but these did see service as, you know, riot guns, squad car guns, things like that, you know, throughout the 70s, 80s, and some, you know, like that in limited use. This is also sort of joked about to be sort of the band-proof rifle, which is a detachable 5.56 version, just like the AR-15. But because it's in a nice classic wood stock, you know, it doesn't get the ire or attention too much of anti-gun politicians and things like that. So on the used market, you do find these ranging in multiple, in a wide array of pricing. They had fixed stock versions, side folding stock versions. You had the stainless steel versions, blued versions like this, wood stock, polymer stocks. The more expensive ones are going to be like early red box, Mini 14 side fold with the stainless finish. Those are going to be, you know, top out about the $1,500 price point. Most traditional Mini 14s are the wood stock with the standard barrel, you know, non-polymer stocks or anything like that. Typically use $600 to $800. Now these new ones are MSRP on the market at about $800 or $900. Typically you find them $700 to $800 new under normal circumstances. Of course, everything's a little bit higher right now. So with the scope being a more recent production, something like this would probably sell in about the $600 to $700 price point typically. So polymer versions, just a little bit less money. Side folding versions, just a little bit more. They also have the tactical versions with, you know, scope mount, scout squad mounts, things like that, and those will go up a little bit in price too, but typically for a little under $1,000, that pretty much covers the gambit on these. So very, very popular rifle. It's been around for about 50 years. Really, really nice, Mini 14. All right, last but not least, I have a number 5 Mark I jungle carbine. These are very popular with World War II collectors, especially people who are in the British variety of collecting. One thing that should be noted about these is these were made 1944 to 1947 by two firms, the Royal Ordnance of Fazakerley and then BSA Birmingham Small Arms. You see these made by anybody else, it's definitely been faked, and these things do get routinely faked. The reason they get faked is a real authentic jungle carbine that's all correct and matching will sell between about $700 to $800. Now you can take a number 4 Mark I Enfield, especially back when they were, you know, $200 to $300. All you would have to do is cut down the barrel, reform the stock, and you know, get a muzzle device, stick that on there, and then get a number 5 Mark I butt plate and replace it there, and sort of create this channel here for the sling loop, and then voila, you have now turned your $250 rifle into an $800 rifle. So a lot of unscrupulous people did that to pass them off as authentics. Now again, there are quick ways that you can tell that it is a reproduction. For example, one of the big things they did with these is they tried to reduce the weight of the rifle. They did that in a few ways. One was machining out the bottom of the bolt handle. One was cutting a lightning cut here into the receiver and here into the receiver, and also cutting lightning cuts on top of the barrel. You would find a cut here, here, and here. Now this one, of course, is authentic. I've checked, and it does have those lightning cuts, but for time, I'm not going to take this off. Now I did have a jungle carbine, another authentic one, in like episode, I think number 7, so you can go back and look at that. I took the handguard off of that one, so you can see what those lightning cuts look like. This one was made in November of 1944 by Fazakerley, and it is not matching, so it does have a matching stock and receiver, but the bolt is mismatched to the gun. You can tell it looks like it has some sort of rack numbers, 1948, so it was Arsenal refurbished, probably got a new bolt. The magazine does not match as well. So this is a nice Arsenal refurb, but a true jungle carbine made, you know, late 1944, so early on in the production of these jungle carbines. And they are not easy to find really in any configuration as authentic firearms. Now being that this is an authentic jungle carbine but mismatched, you know, an authentic one would be, again, $700 to $800. Something like this, $400 to $500 would be typical. Maybe in about the $500 price point would be more fair. But anyway, very cool jungle carbine. Don't get too many of these in. This is the second one we've had in the 6 years I've been here. Although we've gotten tons of number 1 Mark IIIs and number 4 Mark Is, so just not very common. Anyway, there you are, number 5 Mark I jungle carbine. Well, that is all the time I have for you today on these. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out this video. If you enjoyed, please let me know by hitting that like button. And please consider subscribing to my channel so you can see more content like this when we put these videos out. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you off there. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV. I will see you next time.